Welcome to the Biz Coach Show. In every episode, we share information and advice for small business owners, small business leaders, startups, and entrepreneurs preparing to launch their business. Our mission is to give entrepreneurs the edge they need to succeed. If you're in need of business coaching, head over to mybizcoaches.co and book your free coaching consultation today. The Biz Coach Show is presented by Eric Whitmoyer, the owner of My Biz Coaches, a business coach, serial entrepreneur, author, and speaker, as well as David Macon, a certified professional in talent development, growth expert, writer, and small business strategist. Well, Eric, good afternoon. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, David. How about yourself?
I'm doing really good, man. A little bit of snow here in Utah, so we're digging out, but otherwise things are good. So envying you out in Arizona today.
Yeah. No snow here.
No, but come August, July time frame, I'll be happy to be here, and then you'll all work itself out.
I don't know about that.
Depends how good your AC is, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But awesome. Well, hey, thanks for joining us. We've got an exciting episode today. Today's the conclusion of an 8-part series that we've been working through. It's actually been based on a series of articles that Eric has been writing. You can find those in his newsletter. You can just scan the QR code. It's a newsletter on LinkedIn, so just follow those QR codes, and a lot of great content if you want to get caught up on the things that we've been talking about. Also, make sure that you like and subscribe. That way you don't miss future episodes, but you can also go to the Biz Coach Show playlist and check out the last 7 episodes that we've recorded in this 8-episode series. So the theme has been trends to watch in 2024, and Eric's final article on that is all about cybersecurity. So we're going to dive into that topic here today. As we do, Eric, like I've been asking a lot with this series, of all the things going on in the world, right, that you could have chose to focus on in 2024, why did you pick cybersecurity?
Well, I think that the biggest piece, as you look at the things to be concerned about, we know how much AI has played into 2023 specifically, right? The introduction of ChatGPT in the fall of 2022 and the but the introduction of ChatGPT and other AI functions have played a significant role. Prior to that, cybersecurity had a presence and it was important and certainly had an impact on a lot of businesses. We've heard a number of companies that have been hacked and leveraged for ransom and things like that. And we've heard more and more larger companies have been taken advantage of in that way. When you start factoring in the impact that AI could have and the added influence of just internet-based business execution, like so many businesses are taking place on the internet, you combine those two in how disruptive cybersecurity can be, which we'll touch on a little bit today, and how much of an impact that is. It just exacerbates the potential opportunities for significant challenges within many organizations. A lot of it, we looked at, I think it was MGM was one of the companies that had been hacked. There was it was an oil company that had been hacked that we heard about. They were ransomed, to get some kind of multi-million-dollar settlement or something like that to release their services or something like that. But we think about that from a large scale. Now, first of all, if those companies that spend millions of dollars a year to protect their systems can get hacked, anybody could get hacked.
Right.
Now, the average Joe says, "Oh, who's going to mess with me?" Well, if you've got a database of 5,000 or 10,000 people that you've developed over the last 10 years or whatever that may be, and somebody can hack that for social security numbers and contact information and other things like that, that's valuable. And quite honestly, there's a number of people that would get exposed and could create problems. And one of the primary things that we think about for the small business owner is what could happen to that small business owner. So all the more reason to be implementing steps for cybersecurity to protect yourself and protect, one of the things we talk about today is going to be risk mitigation, right? How do I ensure that something like this, because you take the average big company that's able to pay it off, go to the smaller company, and that's probably enough to put them under, right? I mean, this could be the reason it's so important, I think. And to your point, to answer your question more directly, at the end of the day, if a big company, if it's expensive for them to have to pay off, these or the ransom to get people to get their information, their access back or whatever, imagine what that does to the small business owner that can't afford it.
Yeah, as you said that, Eric, that resonated because I got to thinking, imagine for that small business owner who's already on that razor's edge of, profitability and are they going to be able to take money home, this month, right? Those sort of things. Then all of a sudden their website's down for 2 weeks because
Yeah.
of a ransomware attack that they may or may not have the money to get their site back, right? Or all of a sudden, you got to send out that alert to your customer base that your database got hacked and nobody wants to shop at your business anymore. Or, you make somebody's latte wrong and they hack your system and steal your website. I mean, there's a number of different things that can happen. But to your point, yeah, the impact on small business could be profound. So totally get why you picked it. I know that you got a lot of really good key points in your article. So you want to kind of walk us through those?
Yeah, so I think the first one really, as we touch base to your point, there's 8 key things that we talked about. Cybersecurity was not last by any stretch because of a sense of lack of concern in regards to the other 7 categories. It was the one that I wanted to put the most time into. As you know, we actually interviewed 2 people that are in that space. And I believe that we've already got one, and we're working on a second show for next year, early next year in January, to bring a couple of those people on that we gathered some insight and information from, and make that a more, because I couldn't, my article, I couldn't do justice with some of the things that we talked about and some of the information we gathered. And so I think it's important to acknowledge that this is just a pittance in comparison to the amount of impact and possibility and concerns that are created from this. And so, I say that to say, do your own due diligence. I'm providing some basic information here. Definitely encourage you. I know at the end of the show, we're going to provide the opportunity for somebody to download the white paper on this and go through the other 7 topics. But, this, like I said, this is just a smattering of some of the information that would be not very valuable. And the insight that we gained through that interview process to write that article, you guys, I think you'll see significant value from those interviews that we'll conduct as well. So kind of a teaser, but at the same time, this is just a piece. Be prepared for even more information, and we want to bring that to you to ensure that you can prepare yourselves accordingly. That said, the very first one is protection of valuable assets. I mean, when you think about implementing robust access controls, safeguard your digital assets by implementing these controls, define and manage your user permissions meticulously. I can't tell you how irritated I get about this 2-step authentication for all of my software programs, access to different things. But when you think about it, it's I, for instance, personally, I manage all the finances in our home. And every time I have to access my wife's bank account to move money around or something, I got to do some kind of, and I got to wait for her to text me back to do the 2-person authentication. I'm like, this is such a pain in the rear end, right? I mean, at the end of the day, but it's there for a very good reason, because these are the things that you can put into place. And ironically, as I even say this, I remember an article I wrote years ago, very relative to the same topic. It was in regards to an interview that I saw done by the gentleman. It was based on his life story, was the movie Catch Me If You Can.
Oh, yeah.
The movie with Tom Hanks and
Leonardo DiCaprio.
DiCaprio. It was based on his life story, and more specifically toward, the end, after he did all the things that he did, but then ended up going to work for the FBI and teach them about all the things that he was doing. Now this is before cybersecurity. This is just straight up fraud kind of stuff. Writing bad checks was one of the primary things that he did. And in an interview that he actually did the interview for Google. He was doing an interview, but some kind of talk to Google, and he was talking about these different things, and he was talking about just all the advanced technology that they were able to succumb and take over and gain access to these high level accounts and things like that. And it was just like, so you go back to 30, 40 years ago, and he's stealing bank routing numbers off of checks, so that they could pilfer millions of dollars.
Right.
And now, I get direct digital access to somebody's bank account, with millions of dollars and that has access to it. So you talk about these frustrations, and I don't know somebody I haven't spoke to that's complained about the 2-step authentication processes and how frustrating that can be. So, I say that to recognize, it seems like a frustration, but there's very legitimate reasons for it. And more things are going to be coming that will actually force us to do more of that. But I literally, when I think about the conversation I heard him do and the speaking engagement he did, he was like, you have no idea. He goes, if they want your information, they've already got it.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when, right? So, and that resonates as we kind of move forward. Again, talking about that small business owner, what would that do to somebody in that space? So another big thing was encourage regular backups, right? So
Yeah.
you can dramatically reduce the exposure that you could potentially have by backing up your valuable information, your assets. And ransomware attacks are a big thing. It's happened many times already. Unexpected losses. I mean, just losses in general of data is already a disruption to the business. But when you think about somebody consciously stealing the data, the information, right, and what that can do to a business, pretty significant. Backing them up to offsite locations, using cloud backup, things like that are pretty significant and a great opportunity to ensure that you're protecting yourself from downtime and eventual security incidents.
Yep.
Another one's mitigation of financial risk. That's actually a really significant one that most small business owners really aren't considering. As a matter of fact, there's in one of the networking groups that we involve actively at My Biz Coaches that I take part in. We call it a mastermind networking group. And there's a gentleman in there who sells commercial insurance, property and casualty insurance. One of the things that they offer is cybersecurity insurance. It's a rider that they put on a policy for your business insurance. Excuse me. And that is a growing need for many companies because they need to make sure that they're protecting themselves in case something were to happen so that they don't get financially devastated carrying that rider insurance. And it's not cheap, and it's actually getting more expensive because of the more and more hack concerns. But the inclusion of cyber insurance in your business plan is a good protective step, and probably one that we highly recommend to all of our clients. And it used to be if you're not in the internet space, you're not actively. This is everybody, right? This is anybody who's capturing customer information. We've had clients that when we first started working with them, we're still capturing customer credit card information and holding the credit card information in the point of sale software, having direct access to it. I like that. That's so much exposure that I would not want to. Yeah. I would not, as a business owner, would not want the exposure of, right? That's just so much opportunity within the organization, let alone somebody else getting access to it externally. But huge opportunity there to protect yourself and mitigate some of those financial risks by just getting a simple insurance policy like that. Regular audits, security audits. In most small companies, what we recommend is working with like an IT company. There's a lot of IT companies that help set up your computer networks, maybe do, help ensure that all your computers are connected with the internet and things like that. But these IT companies, one of the ones that we highly recommend, actually, you'll be able to find on our site with our connection to other vendor partners that we recommend from My Biz Coaches. And they incorporate this into their assessment with the client. So when somebody says, we need some work with, we're going to buy new computers, we want to do this, we want to be able to set this up, whatever, what's our Wi-Fi, we want to be able to provide this, we want to be able to have clients work remotely or employees work remotely, gain access remotely. They want to make sure it's set up correctly. Well, these IT companies that we recommend actually have an entire process to help ensure that you're protecting yourself against any cyber hacks that you could potentially be exposed to, which is another great first step is to utilize their resources to come in and assess your company and help you recognize where you may be exposed. Ironically, and I don't remember the exact statistic, but it was well over 90% of hacks still come from something as simple as phishing tactics through email.
Yeah, I was going to say what was going in my mind as you were talking about that was, well, no surprise, but training. So training your employees on things like phishing or, you talked about remote work. Well, don't connect to public Wi-Fi when you're using secure applications, right? There's little things like that, even if you take the best safeguards and you have firewalls, it takes, one employee sharing a code or accessing an insecure network. Those sorts of things can be a real issue. So train your people, right? Train your people. I say that a lot, but yeah, it's true.
Yeah, from the trainer. What's interesting about that, and as you mentioned that, like I said, that the IT solutions that we recommend to our clients, they incorporate that training component into their service that they provide. So not only do they conduct an audit, show you where your exposure is and let you know where you're susceptible, but in addition to that, they also provide you the training that would be valuable to help ensure that you don't get this. I mean, it's crazy how many hacks are still coming from, like I said, just simple email phishing expeditions, for lack of a better term, and a bogus email with a funky link. And I will tell you, I mean, we within my biz coaches, I get these multiple times a week, I will say, emails that are mimicked, from it's like a link from, what is it, PayPal. That's one of the more popular ones that I'll see. And I see it's a funky link and it'll say, hey, you're not getting this deposit, or, something like that. And you're like, what are you talking about? And then you click on some executable file that's hidden in this, it's like, click here to resolve the issue. And if you're not paying attention, I mean, they're pretty sharp. The kind of stuff that they'll put in that, if you don't pay attention, I feel like if you're not expecting some type of appropriate communication from, who does your banking or who does your credit card processing, or, I mean, you could very easily not be paying attention, click on it and be like, what are you talking about? And all of a sudden have downloaded some virus, which then, by the way, is only there to sit in your system and review and gather information until they decide they want to execute the hack.
Right.
Another thing that I didn't understand or didn't have any appreciation for until going through these interviews with these couple of people. And it's like, yeah, so what it'll do is it'll get into your system. It just sits in your system like any other type of virus, continues to grow and faster, get attached to more things, and then they execute it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty crazy to kind of hear about some of the things that play out the way they do. Another one is develop an incident response plan. So how to brand reputation, how to protect your brand, right? So I think about, this isn't really considered cyber, but you think about food organizations. We've had some recent over the years, a couple of big name companies, I won't use those names, but a couple of big name companies that had some scares with different, like it was Ebola and some other things like that had huge implications in the brand, right, over the last 10 years. That, think about what that does to an organization. Let's say, a small company that does $5 to $10 million a year, and they offer some kind of service to business clients or whatever, and all of a sudden they get hacked, and that affects their brand. Well, there's an entire process to protect your brand, of the things you should do, how you should communicate it, what you should do to make sure that you protect yourself, and at the same time, let your clients know who might have been exposed. I mean, we've all received emails from different credit card companies. I'm pretty sure that's a big one that most people have been hit with already, where they're like, hey, by the way, you've been exposed. And if you want to make sure you protect yourself, go here, follow this link. It'll let you know how much you've been exposed or what degree you've been exposed and what you should change to correct or improve or whatever the case may be. That's a whole process that, if that happened to my business tomorrow, I'd be like, what do I do?
Yeah, right.
But these companies will help you prepare for that and have a strategy in place should something happen to your business. Again, I would say most business owners that we engage with have zero perspective on what that would look like if they had to deal with it tomorrow.
Sure. Yeah.
Monitor online presence, actively monitor your online presence of signs or unauthorized access and data leaks. Utilize reputation management tools to track mentions of your brand across digital platforms. Hadn't even thought about that one until I started doing my research on this whole thing. But as I said, that's a whole nother piece of that. And I've seen offshoots of our brand, of my biz coaches, and I'm like, we're not that big enough to have somebody trying to, piggyback off of anything we're doing. But ironically, there's not very large companies, and they're getting impacted from these types of activities from cyber hackers. And then another one's compliance and regulations. There's lots of things out there in regards to compliance, both with the different authorities, making sure you're up to date on what your expectations are. I would say, best guess, I'm going to say somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 to 70% of companies are probably out of compliance unknowingly, because they don't know what the actual guidelines are or the expectations for their business. And so because of that, they're likely outside of the requirements that they should be legally, and consequently are exposed.
Yeah.
So you mentioned training programs, employee training programs. Like we kind of touched on that, but that's a big one, is helping people, understand what to look for, how to protect themselves. And, if you have remote workers, when they're working from home, sometimes they may access your systems from their personal computers. And how do you ensure, using a VPN or something like that to ensure that they're not exposing your network from their own personal PC, right?
Right.
fostering customer trust, right? And just things like this are going to help ensure that the customer trusts you when they engage with you, if they're providing information to you. So those are key points. And then secure platforms. We're building out, as you well know, we're building out platforms for our clients to be able to access, hundreds of hours of content. Well, whenever they access that system, there's potential threats for them when they engage if they're using their computers to access our system. So we don't keep anything of any significance on that system other than the hours of content that we provide, because
Right.
there's potential exposure opportunities, right? So yeah, anyway, so there's a number of different things that, like I said, when we first started this process and I was doing my due diligence, I got into it and I'm just like, man, I don't know that I could do service with this. It's like,
Right. Yeah.
I will find some really, sharp people that are in this space and help me understand, because there's so many implications potentially. And as I said at the beginning of the show, my biggest concern isn't what the exposure could happen today, but with the amount of AI type things and that are playing out, that digital images and digital voices and things like that can already software that can mimic it right now. It doesn't take long before somebody can really kind of take advantage of some scenarios.
Yeah. No, some really good points. A lot of things to think about. And I'm thinking about, as I often do, somebody who's listening to this or watching this and they're thinking, okay, Eric, you've scared me. I know cybersecurity is something I need to work on in the upcoming year. Any advice on maybe where they start when it comes to cybersecurity in 2024?
Yeah, so I asked that of both the people we interviewed, and I'm excited about being able to have them on the show, because I'm telling you right now, there's more than I can do justice, and there's a lot of really basic things like changing your password regularly. I personally am one of those people that really kind of hates that, but the reality is that's actually one of the most tried and true practices that they constantly reinforced in both conversations, completely independent of one another. Just saying, hey, what, this one of the most basic things you can do is change your password regularly. I'm like, I hate that. Like everything they were starting to recommend, I'm like, I really hate that.
Yeah.
The two-piece authentication, right? I'm just like, I hate that. It's so disruptive. And I'll add another piece to that came out of this whole conversation. We were in the process of employing a virtual assistant. And now the virtual assistant's based here in the United States, and somebody I would trust, to give them access to certain information within the organization, not just for them to have access, but now you're extending your exposure to somebody that doesn't directly work for you, right? They're a vendor, giving them access to certain platforms, like your social media platforms or something like that. All of a sudden, this is, it quickly spirals down this interesting path of, hey, I just want somebody to manage my social media. Well, that right there is already an exposure opportunity, right? I mean, it's just by giving somebody else access to the social media platform. Most of them now want to use third-party applications to do posting for social media. And as I talked to these two gentlemen, both of them said, yeah, that right there is an exposure that you need to be conscious of, and the impact, the implications that could have. So yeah, but the basic things are sharing of passwords, constant, regular changing the passwords, and then a really good next step, or next two steps, I would say, would be ensuring that you have a reviewing exposure for the insurance, getting some kind of cyber policy extended on your business insurance. And then I would highly recommend contacting one of these IT companies. They have relatively inexpensive services that they come in, they provide you the assessment, they have these tools that go in, they show you all the different exposure points and the things that you need to be prepared for, provide you the training, and then they have a monitoring service that can help you manage the dark web and make sure that there's no other pieces that you have exposed. But those are some of the best first steps that came from the conversations we had. And as I said, make sure that you turn in for the future shows in the coming weeks, because those are really going to provide some great insights for you, as well as we'll be able to drop some links and drive you to some of the people that we would highly recommend their services.
Yeah. Great reminder to subscribe if you haven't already to the show.
Absolutely. If that didn't scare you to subscribe, I don't know what will.
Love it. Well, before we wrap up, Eric, any other thoughts on cybersecurity in 2024? And then maybe we talk about some of the cool stuff you got going on over at My Biz Coaches.
Yeah, no, as I said, I think that there's so many things, so many moving pieces when we talk about these. And I'm going to encapsulate because we're at the last episode, but in regards to the 8 trends that we talked about, some of these are interrelated. We talked about making sure that all businesses are able to do business online, right? It's like, even if you have a service-based business, people want to be able to buy online. We talked about one of the very first episodes that we talked about in this 8 series, the 8 trends, was speed of service, right? And the value of automations to tie those all together. Well, those automations are directly associated with a lot of AI content or pieces that you can tie in with that, right? So you're really kind of tying a number of these things together, and really kind of an overarching piece of all of it is that by doing that, right, you're enhancing your ability to provide faster service. You're enhancing your ability to provide a better experience for your client. You're more resources making available to your client, and at the same time, it just accelerates all the exposure that's potentially out there.
Yeah.
So, it's really kind of tying that all together and saying, hey, look, this cybersecurity piece is no joke. And like I said, today it could be the small business owner that does $500,000 a year, but then gets hacked for a $25,000 ransom that they can't afford, to your point earlier. And they're like, okay, well, then we just won't give it back to you.
Right.
Like, they may not do anything more than just not give you back access to your website.
Yeah.
Well, what does that do to your business? Yeah, exactly. What does that do to your business if you just tied everything to the internet, which you almost have to by necessity?
Right.
So there's a lot of pieces that kind of tie all together, and that's where I think that my concern really extended from doing this research.
Yeah, awesome. Well, let's talk about My Biz Coaches for a minute. You had a pretty cool workshop today. Do you want to tell our audience a bit about that, and then the upcoming workshop that you've got?
Yeah, so amazing workshop. Appreciate the people that were involved that helped me out getting prepared for that and putting that together. And also appreciate those who showed up live for the event. It was an awesome show, or event, I should say. We had, I think 176 people registered for it. And we're already into thousands of hours of people that have actually watched it, not only live, but now I'm seeing the number of people on LinkedIn that are watching it after the fact. So really encouraging to see a lot of people obviously appreciating the value of the content. Everybody who was live shared great comments and as far as the value that they got out of it. In addition to that, we offered a program that would help people put together their strategic business plan for 2024. And so that was the purpose of that workshop, to your point, was to help people put that together. We went through my 10-step plan, which was drawn from my book, Success with Goals. We took the content, revised it for specifically directed to business owners. And we went so far as to put that plan together, literally walk everybody through those 10 steps so they could use the concepts, create a outline for a business plan. And then we went one step further and said, hey, look, you know what? We recognize that it's a lot of work to put one like that together, especially if you haven't done it before. And in the very first part of that, what we said was, look, this is a great exercise, but the reality is the exercise is worthless if you don't continue to review it. If you don't put out your strategic plan and then continue to review it monthly, weekly, daily, and challenge yourself, how are we progressing towards it? How far off base are we? What do we need to do to get back on track, right? If you're not consistently assessing it, as you know, things get measured, get results, right? You get the results that you want when you're measuring it consistently. And so we offered a program that said, you work with us for 12 weeks and we'll help ensure that you get your business plan put together and executed on. And we, over the 12 weeks, we'll go through each of the different steps, help you determine what's your business mission, make sure that's aligned with your values and your culture, and then introduce each of the steps each week over the course of 12 weeks to make sure you get it rolled out the way you want it to. And then we had an additional program, whereas if you wanted to continue to work with us throughout the course of the year, we'll help you make sure you stay on track throughout that. So I don't know David, if that's available, but we had the.
I was saying, it's too bad we can't offer that to our audience, can we?
What a great opportunity to share that with them. There we go. But yeah, there you go. And in addition to that, for everybody, if you scan that QR code, you get a copy of my ebook, The Success with Goals. You get a copy of the worksheet that we use for each of the different goals that we develop. And one of the main things that we came away with was you can only have one specific breakthrough goal that we use for different sprints. So I encourage you to watch the video so you can understand some of the context of that. And then the white paper of the 8 trends that we talked about to watch for 2024. So you got the content, the material of the 8 trends, plus you can actually go back and watch the videos because we've done a show for each of the different articles that made up the white paper. And then there's the offer on the right, 40% off the 12-week plan for $297, and doing the entire year, plus get the business coaching and 300 hours of self-paced business content, how to market and sales and cutting costs, everything you could possibly need to help get your business off the ground, all available to you for just $997 for the entire year.
See, this is why you got to subscribe, because you never know when there's a great deal or a discount or a free workshop. So definitely got to subscribe. And again, you can just scan the QR code or the website, right, Eric, mybusinesscoaches.co/webinar, and you get the replay and all the cool deals there. So awesome. And you got another webinar coming up, right?
Yes, sir. We got one coming up on January 5th. There it is. I'm excited about that. So similar format. This one will be specifically around synchronizing success in 2024. So today's was on charting success and creating your plan for it. This would be about synchronizing success and mastering the arts of productivity and efficiency. We can use the phrase, time management, but at the end of the day, it's helping you be more productive and more efficient, and using specific time management skills to help ensure you get the most value out of the time invested. So you build the plan, then we show you how to make sure that you execute on a day in, day out basis to get the results that you're looking for.
Awesome. Love it. Yeah. And to find out more about that, register, find Eric on LinkedIn. And then we'll also have it linked on Eric's website, I believe, as well. So definitely check it out there. Anything else you want to talk about, Eric, before we wrap up today?
I think that does it.
Awesome. Cool. Well, hey, this has been a fun series. I think it's the first time we've done 8 episodes around kind of a specific theme or topic. So that was super cool, and appreciate all the insights along the way. If you missed any of them, like we said, just go to our playlist on Eric's YouTube channel, My Biz Coaches. Look for the Biz Coach Show. It has all of those episodes, or read the articles, or download the white paper that has all of them in one streamlined spot. So definitely check it out. Oh, go ahead, Eric.
Or you can go to Spotify or iTunes.
Yeah, that's right.
I noticed that we actually have we have more following on the actual podcast channels than we do on YouTube.
Well, I want to see our faces. What's up with that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Face for radio, apparently. But
yeah, exactly.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. So listen to it on your commute. You don't necessarily have to watch it. So yeah, great reminder there.
I think what was that? I think we were rated we were top 10 in Korea or something like that.
I think so. Yeah, we're growing internationally. Yep, that's right. Awesome. Well, as always, Eric, great hanging out with you. And to our audience, thanks for watching or listening. And we'll catch you on the next episode of The Biz Coach Show.
Outstanding. Thank you.